All right. Hello and welcome to week 5. We are going to talk about handling discipline issues. This, I feel like every week is kind of a challenging topic, but this one is hard because you never know what you are going to encounter in a classroom. You never know how they're going to react, how they're going to behave, all of that. And you as the teacher have to figure out your discipline policies. So we are going to talk about some of these discipline issues and how to handle them and why it matters. So first off, why does it matter if you have a discipline in place in your classroom? So I'm sure that you have been in classrooms where you had a very strict teacher that it was like robotic almost, and then you had another teacher that everyone was out of control. Well, you want to establish a well-managed classroom. So think about in the middle of those. And that just gives you more instructional time, fewer disruptions. It's less exhausting because you're not constantly trying to redirect and you're not getting interrupted. And you can actually teach, which is what you're going to school for. So discipline shouldn't be thought of as a punishment, but it's more of establishing those safe, respectful boundaries to have that learning environment that students thrive in. And then it has been a known fact that students who feel connected behave better. You have to figure out, especially those students that are going to push your buttons, and you will always have them. How do you reach them? I had students that had a huge long list of behavior issues in the system, and they got to mine and they might have gotten 1, maybe 2 all year. And that's because I established that relationship and I had those clear expectations across the board, no matter what they were coming from. For example, I had a student who, again, came to me. I knew coming in 5th grade, this was going to be a behavior issue. But he wanted to take a selfie with me and send it to his mom if he had a good day. And so I used that to my advantage. Hey, we're not going to be able to take that selfie. And that was just a gentle reminder. But I also did not just say, we'll send a selfie if you behave. Well, that's not really clear of... Everyone has a different interpretation of behave. So I would say, if you don't interrupt me, if you stay in your seat, and if you get your work done, then we'll send a selfie. Those were 3 easy things that he could be like, okay, I can do these, instead of behave. Well, what does that mean? That doesn't include the academic part, and I always try to include the academic component. So next we're going to talk about proactive measures. So first, in the very beginning of the year, set those rules, routines, expectations, your procedures, and have 3 to 5 clear ones. You might already have those established at your school, but have those posted in the room. That way you can refer back to them. And try and put a more positive spin on it, just like it says here. Raise your hand before speaking instead of saying, don't talk out of turn. Well, spin it in a better way because that already gives that negative connotation with it. And that's just establishing respect with them. Then involve the students in creating these rules. You can guide the students into what you want your rules to be, but if they have some say, then they take that ownership. But also have them displayed in the classroom, because there's many times that I'm like, whoa, let's check our expectations and our procedures. Are we following them? If not, then we would regroup. Teach your routines. The first 3 days of your school year, it should be just about teaching routines and getting to know each other and building those relationships. So yes, you can say, turn your homework into this bin. Well, actually have them practice. Because if not, they need that kinesthetic learning to go with actually learning that, because every year it changes of where you're going to turn something in. Just like in these courses, I told all of my mentees, which were beginning teachers, if something bothers you of what the students are doing at the beginning of the year, say you don't like how they're lining up to go to recess, then have them stop and redo it. Because if you do not kind of force that at the beginning of the year, then as the year goes on, they're going to push and push and push. And by the middle of the year, end of the year, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I cannot handle this. So if something annoys you or bothers you of how they're doing something, make them redo it. I mean, there's many times that they would line up and it was chaotic. And I would just say, sit back down. That's not how we line up. And then we would try it again. I know it's annoying, but it got the point across, and they had those clear expectations. Relationships. If you have strong teacher-to-student relationships, your behavior problems will drastically decrease. I cannot preach this enough. Get to know your students. Have them get to know you. If they feel like they are part of your life and you are invested in them, they will perform for you. Learn student names early. It was my goal, I'll say, by the end of the very first day of school, I had 80 to 90% of the names down. And for me, one of the relationship building things that I did was I gave every student a nickname. I mean, it could be anywhere from the name is Luke. The nickname was Lukester. It's a silly thing, but that was our little bond. I had another student. I could not think of a nickname. I even Googled a nickname for, his name was Hudson. I could not think of a nickname. Well, he loved to fish. So he was Angler. So I called him Angler. And that was our bond. And it established that relationship. And they felt so awesome that they got a nickname from me. And I mean, I would spend the first usually 2 to 3 weeks of school establishing those nicknames. I would check and make sure that that was okay with them and it was not one that was silly or something like that. But that was our bond. Again, you don't have to do that. I saw a student who actually just graduated college or high school. I'm not that old yet. Graduated high school, and I called him Brother Barnes. And I went to his graduation, and I was like, Brother Barnes, and his face glue up because one, I remembered his nickname, and two, we still had that bond, and this was years and years later. So just learn kids' names, learn their interests, learn so much about them so that you can feel a part of their life and they can feel a part of yours. Engage students with a variety inclusive instruction. So just have them engaged in activities. If you are bored as the teacher teaching something, they're going to be bored. So don't make it boring. All right. Next is addressing that behavior. So strategies and models for this. Use those nonverbal cues, that teacher look of like, ooh, I better stop. Go stand next to them. There were sometimes that I would just touch their desk and they would know, okay, I need to settle myself. Modeling, that goes kind of more when something really occurs. The least model. So look at the student, establish those rules, have those specific consequences, and then take action. My students knew if I had to say your name twice, then you had a lap outside. That was it. And I would say their name. They didn't stop. I wouldn't even have to look at them again. I would just say, that's a lap. And they knew. And they got it together. But you don't have to have a whole conversation about something. If you are quick to address the behavior and move on, they will correct, because nobody wants to be barked at or nagged at over behavior. You never know what's going on. So that's a gentle reminder. Hey, that's a lap. We just did a lap around the basketball court at recess. That was it. But also stay calm and firm. I didn't have to raise my voice. All I had to do is, that's a lap. Or you owe me 5 minutes at lunch. So they would have silent lunch for 5 minutes. It just depended on this situation, the school, all of that. But it was a quick thing. But I never raised my voice. I never got, because once you show that they have control, then it's done. And all of the other students see that as well. Also, the consequences need to be logical and related to the behavior. So I'm not going to give, just for somebody calling out too many times, I'm not going to give them whole time at recess walking the basketball court. But no, it needs to be a quick something, and it needs to be consistent. They knew if I had to say your name twice, boom, you had a lap. Also, document. I had a spreadsheet that had every kid's name, and then I would just write the date next to their name of it when they had a lap. And that way, if a parent ever came back to me about behavior, I could pull up and I would be like, well, on this date, they had a lap. And it's just a quick thing. I am one that lives by too many tabs. I mean, I still have it up here, I can see. But please document. Cannot stress that enough. It will help you, especially when students there's something with a parent or something bigger happens. You can say, here on this day, you can just refer back to it. It's covering your booty, but it helps you tremendously. So here is kind of a sample discipline plan. So at the beginning of the year, make sure that you establish those rules, expectations, all of those things. Every single one. That's why we had you list out some of those important things. And that's what you are going to do for part of your classroom management plan of thinking through, how do you want kids to sharpen a pencil? I did not like for my students to sharpen a pencil in my room. And so they would just switch them out, or I would sharpen it for them. That way it would not break, and it doesn't take 84 years for them to sharpen a pencil. That was just something that I did. Other people had a specific time. It's all in what you are comfortable with, and it's okay to change them. But make sure you establish those routines if you change them. Build the relationships. Engage those students. Make them feel welcomed and wanted. Monitor them. When they are transitioning, like lining up, don't just go back to your desk and do something, or stand outside in the hall and talk to a teacher. No, you should be monitoring. And if somebody's not doing it correctly, have them sit back down and try again. Same with step 4, reinforce those. And just when a behavior occurs, apply that least model, which we've already talked about. And then document. For me in 5th grade, I did not communicate often with the parents of, oh, your child had a lap today. They're in 5th grade. It was one of those, like, I don't need to be telling your parent every time you have to walk a lap. That's just, it also breaks that relationship between us. Now, if it was a bigger something, yes, communicate. But every little tiny thing, no. Here are some charts that some people use. At one school, we had to use this clip up and clip down. I personally did not like it, just because I would forget to move them up, and because everyone starts on green. But it was something we did school wide. I Another thing that is really, I don't like, is a very visual that everyone can see. Well, everyone does not need to know that Levi was on yellow today based on this, because you start seeing the same pattern. And I guarantee you knew those kids when you were growing up. Oh, they were on yellow today. Yep, they were on red today. You don't need to know that. So that's why I'd never really had a visual. It was just one of those like, all right, you got a lap. And then I would write it on a sticky note so that I could take it outside. But make sure that you document. These are ones that might be if a student needs a visual, having a smiley face of how they're doing daily or throughout the day. We've used this for like our check-in, check-out kids if they were behavior issues. Tips for teachers. So having that mindset, stay calm, consistent, and predictable. They know what the behavior is going to be if they mess up. Avoid getting into a power struggle. We did not discuss if you had a lap or not. It was one of those, you have a lap. Sometimes they would give me that, and I would say, you want to make it 2, or are you good with 1? And that was it. There was not a discussion. I don't need to be fighting with a 5th grader about a lap or not. It was just, we didn't discuss it. That way we can move on, because when I'm addressing something, that's taking away time from instruction. Reflect regularly. So why did so many kids get off task today? Was I sitting at my desk too much? Was I focused on something else and not on monitoring the students? Just be reflective. That is one thing, teachers, you have to be reflective and truly reflective, not like, oh, that went well, or that didn't go so well. Well, why? And then take care of yourself. Behavior management is demanding, especially in the beginning of the year, because you're wanting to establish that. So make sure you have somebody to talk to. And if you need a little time out, ask an administrator to come in there. And then always go back to those relationships. Being consistent, fair, and rely on those relationships to correct behavior. So I feel disrespected when you try and talk over me. That's one that they are able to be like, oh, that probably hurts her feelings. And they have to spin it of like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that. So this week we've talked about handling discipline issues. This is a hard topic because you never know what you will be faced with. But just stay calm, consistent, and just focus on the behavior that you are wanting. So if you have any questions for me, please email me. I'm here to help. If you need help in anything, I am here to support you. Other than that, have a great week.